Hi BookTube, Aaron here. Hope you're doing very well. Today I'm going to be carrying on my library tour for 2024. This is video, I think, 11 or 12 in that series, and I've been making my way through the books in this room here on these shelves behind me. They're the shelves that are normally in the background of my video. And they house, I don't know, maybe just over half of the books in the house, somewhere around there. I haven't counted all of the books I own for quite some time, but certainly there's a good deal of books here. Most of them books that I'd consider classics in some way, shape or form, and they really make up a large proportion of my reading. A lot of the books I tend to read are taken from these shelves, so it's going to feel weird kind of coming to the end of this bit of the library tour. I might try and keep it going into sort of other areas of the house. There are books in most rooms of the house, but I might take a pause to kind of think through where I want to go next and the approach I want to take and things like that. But we'll push on. We've got one shelf to go, and it's sort of squidged up with lots of stuff, so we'll see how we do. Firstly, we've got this little box of 100 postcards from Penguin Modern Classics with Albert Camus on the front there, very thoughtfully reading the newspaper. And who have we got there? We've got Ian Forster. No, that's that's Wyndham Lewis. Never really knew what he looked like. And yeah, it's just got loads of literary postcards in it. At the beginning of the year, I did a kind of lucky dip into that box to take out a random postcard and to read a book by that author, and I pulled out James Baldwin, so I'll be reading some James Baldwin later on in the year with Alan from Big Hard Books and Classics. And then moving on, carrying on, we in terms of letters, we're going from T through to the end of the alphabet, with a few authors turning up who don't really fit into the alphabetical sequence that I've been going through. But first up, we've got Henry David Thoreau and Walden. Haven't read this yet. Very nice, relaxing cover. This might be one I might try and read. I think I will really enjoy Walden. I've just been putting it off for some reason. As I've said before, even though I quite enjoy Walt Whitman, I've read Louisa May Alcott, and yet I still have this kind of intimidation when it comes to reading the Transcendentalists. But moving on, we've got some Anthony Trollope. First up, we've got Sir Harry Hotspur of Humblethwaite, which was okay. It kind of felt like, I don't know, it wasn't really doing much more than like Jane Austen, and not quite as well as Jane Austen. But a very short book, a standalone Trollope, and it's all I've read of him so far. But I'll be eventually making some kind of plans to try and read a bit more Trollope. So next up, we've got Can You Forgive Her in a Penguin from the Penguin English Library. A bit sort of faded, this one. With this book, I managed to actually buy two identical editions. I bought an edition, put it in a safe place, forgot I had it, and then bought another. So this was out of the two in the best condition, so I kept that one. And then we've got Phineas Finn, and then we've got the Prime Minister as well. So I'm slowly sort of gathering the Palliser novels together, and I might read the Palliser novels. I think with any I don't have yet, I can easily get as a free ebook. So I shouldn't let the fact that I don't have the full collection put me off getting started. I think I should probably get started with the Palliser novels at some point. Then we've got some Mark Twain. We've got the Adventures of Tom Sawyer in one of these little, is it Masterworks? Is that what the publisher of them? Trying to see now. I think it is Masterwork. Oh, the Macmillan Collector's Library. I think this was a birthday present for my dad. For a certain birthday, which was really, really nice. Then we've got Jules Verne. We've got Around the World in 80 Days with a great Wallace and Gromit cover that I really love. This might be the Jules Verne I read next. I'm not sure. And then we'll jump forward into the alphabet because this one stacks on top. We've got the complete works, allegedly, of Oscar Wilde, this big sort of omnibus edition. It's got lots of his plays, poetry and prose in here. I don't think it has absolutely everything, because I'm fairly certain it doesn't have De Profundis in here. But it's got sort of most of the famous stuff. Then moving on, we've got a few Elizabeth von Arnim books. I haven't read anything by Elizabeth von Arnim yet. But first off, we've got The Enchanted April. Then we've got Father. Really quite a lovely cover to that. And then we've got Elizabeth and her German Garden. So 3 Elizabeth von Arnim novels. Then we've got Ben-Hur, but I don't think this is the original Ben-Hur. So this is by Carol Wallace, based on the best-selling novel by Lew Wallace. So from what I can tell, this isn't actually the original novel. It might be like a kind of a reworking of it to sort of tie in with the movie. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it's an abridgment or something like that. Then next up, we've got The Castle of Otranto by Horace Walpole. Just a great little short Gothic novel that really sort of started off the vogue for Gothic fiction in Britain in the late 18th century, and it's one I'd love to reread. And from what I can remember, it's just quite crazy and lots of weird supernatural things going on. Then we've got The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. I really loved this book. I thought it was wonderfully written. The characters were really complicated and just kept on making things worse and worse for themselves, really. It's interesting because I think the world that she's writing about is a world that you can kind of recognise as a modern reader, and yet the people in it in some way are so foreign to the way we live now, and I don't know, to the way that we just relate to other people, I suppose. It's hard to, I don't know, I find it hard to work out exactly what I think about it, but there's a kind of foreignness to the characters in that novel, which is quite interesting. And then back to Oscar Wilde. I've got the picture of Dorian Gray, and I really should read some more Oscar Wilde. I haven't actually read much or anything from that omnibus that I showed you, but Wilde was sort of one of those writers that when I was in my teens, I was sort of struggling to read and find writers that I connected with, and Oscar Wilde was one of those writers that I really connected with, particularly with his plays, The Importance of Being Earnest, An Ideal Husband. And I think it was his sense of humour and his wit that sort of drew me in. I think there's something kind of irresistible to that, particularly in his plays. And so, yeah, I'd love to revisit Oscar Wilde soon. It's been a while since I read The Portrait of Dorian Gray as well. Then next up, we've got Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. It's the only novel by Virginia Woolf that I've read so far. I really love this. Read it a couple of years ago now when I had COVID, and I was feeling ill, a little bit nauseous and out of it. But somehow my head was still kind of working, and I was just able to sit there and read. So I read quite a lot over those couple of weeks, and yeah, I didn't want to read Mrs. Dalloway all in one go, so I sort of got to about halfway, I think, and then read something else so I could spread it out over a couple of days and process it a bit. But yeah, just a really wonderful book. And then I've got To the Lighthouse as well, which will be the next Virginia Woolf that I get to. And then a writer that I haven't got to yet, and this is all I own by him at the moment, Emile Zola, and this is The Paradise. I think they changed the title of it to go with the title of the TV show based on the book. Let's have a look. I'm sure they said something about the title. The Lady's Paradise is what it was originally translated as. That's how the title was initially translated. But now it's rendered The Paradise here. I think it's about someone sort of working her way up the ranks of a department store in Paris, and I don't know, there's something sort of glamorous and fun and whimsical. At least that's the kind of impression I got from the synopsis, and so I'm not sure exactly when I'll read it, and really don't know all too much about Emile Zola, except for his sort of involvement in the Dreyfus affair, and being quite outspoken about the kind of blatant anti-Semitism going on in France in the sort of mid to late 19th century. And then really ending the sort of alphabet theme, we've got A Chess Story by Stefan Zweig, which is just wonderful. This might have been the first book I ever read in a Pushkin Press edition, and just as an object, it just feels really lovely, and it's a wonderfully satisfying short story as well, about a man who was arrested by the Nazis and was imprisoned, and his only way of escape in his mind was this book he had of chess tactics, and so he was playing these games of chess in his head, and it kind of turns into a kind of madness. But yeah, just a really, really wonderful and just very satisfyingly done story. And then moving on, we've got a pile of books here that are sort of piled up that they're all books on the whole that have been bought recently. You've probably seen them in book hauls. We've got a duplicate of the collected fictions of Jorge Luis Borges, one of my favourite writers, and I was just very keen to get that edition of his fictions. And then we've got a pile of Karl Ove Knausgaard, so all of his My Struggle books. So we've got A Death in the Family, A Man in Love, Boyhood Island, Dancing in the Dark, Some Rain Must Fall, and The End. So far, I've only read A Death in the Family, but at some point I will be making my way through and actually reading the whole thing. And then to finish up, we've just got some light reading, really. So I've got my Norton Shakespeare. So this is, I think, pretty much everything by Shakespeare, with lots of, every play has got its own lengthy introduction, and there are plenty of sort of notes, and there are glosses to the side of the text to, if there's a word that's a bit odd and not used very often, then it'll sort of help you out a bit. I don't tend to read from it very much anymore. It's it's very big and very unwieldy, but it's good to know that I've got all of Shakespeare in one place. What I tend to do at the moment for most plays is I tend to read Shakespeare on my Kindle, and then I come to this for the introduction for each play, so that either before or after reading it, I can get a bit of a deeper idea of what's going on, and that's been the most helpful way for me so far. And then just a bit more Shakespeare. We've got Hamlet in an Oxford World Classics edition. I used to have Romeo and Juliet in this as well, and I got rid of it because it was already in my complete Shakespeare, but I kind of regret it, and there is part of me that wishes that I had all of Shakespeare in these Oxford World Classics editions. I do, the introductions to these are sort of momentous, like in some of them seems like nearly half the book is the introduction. It's really amazing, and it gives you a sort of the cultural background, gives you a bit of a discussion on the story, but then it'll go into the play's textual history, and going into why we think it was written at a certain time, what was going on at that time, how it's been performed down the ages, and just things like that. I just really love the introductions, and the same goes for this. This is the complete sonnets and poems, and again the introduction to this is just massive, and I really love it, and I read through all of this for like Shake-Tember. So in September there's an event where we read Shakespeare, and there's one Shake-Tember where I didn't go with the kind of set texts that they had, but instead decided to just read all of the sonnets, and also all of Shakespeare's sort of longer poems as well, and just really loved it. I think I need to find. I sort of marked up a few sonnets that I particularly enjoyed, and I think I need to note them down and just go back to them from time to time, and kind of check in with them, and see what I think of them as time goes on. And then there are a couple of books that there aren't any books. There is one more shelf underneath, but there are only two books that are kept in it, so that bits and bobs are kept on the shelf. But they're both big, hefty anthology volumes. We've got That Glimpse of Truth. This is 100 of the finest short stories ever written, edited by David Miller. And this is really, really good. It's been a great way for me to sample certain writers before picking anything up by them. So I think I first encountered Kafka in here. I read A Hunger Artist, and I read, I think, Borges for the first time in here. And there's just lots of great stuff in here. There's some P.G. Wodehouse in here. There's Aesop in here. There's Dickens. There's let's see who else. There's Muriel Spark. John Cheever, let's see if there's anyone else I recognise turning up. Anyway, you get the idea. Lots of sort of great writers through the ages. I think probably up until the end of the 20th century. And then finally, another book that I don't spend as much time with as I should, but there's just something comforting about having it around, and about the potential of just having all of this information when I need it. And it's volume 1 of the Norton Anthology of English Literature. It's not in the best shape. This was one I had to use quite a lot at university, so it let's see, there's a certain point where it just goes like that, and it's probably going to split into two at some point. But it served me well at university, and who knows, it may very well serve me well at some point in the future. But there we go. That's everything I've got now. So that's these 2 bookshelves you can see here, completely covered. And so I hope you've enjoyed going through these shelves with me. Hopefully I'll be back soon, going through some other shelves that I've got. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.